The 80s are one of the most iconic eras of all time. From music to fashion, it had it all. It was fun, it was freeing, it was full of latchkey kids who went out on their bikes in the morning and didn't come home until the streetlights came on. It brought us video games, music videos, and acid-washed jeans. It was fun, truly. But it was also strange and weird. I'm Mike with List 25, and here are 25 things you probably didn't know about the 80s. But before all that, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, notification bell. It really helps the channel. Alright, let's press start. It's a video game reference, just come on. 25. Pac-Man was the first video game to become a cultural phenomenon worldwide. Let's flash back to 1980. The hair was huge, the music was loud, and the hottest new celeb on the block wasn't a rock star. It was a yellow circle with an eating problem brought to you by the good old people of Namco. Pac-Man hit the arcade scene and instantly became a worldwide obsession. Instead of blasting aliens in space, you were running through neon mazes, chomping on dots, and being chased by adorable ghosts named Blinky, Pinky, Inky, and Clyde. Who the hell names a ghost Clyde? Pac-Man fever went way beyond the arcade game. He was on lunchboxes, sheets, blankets, posters, pajamas, and even had his own pop song. Yes, people actually danced to Pac-Man Fever and jammed out every single time it came on the radio. This hungry little circle was hardcore, and everyone wanted a piece. He was a worldwide phenomenon. You think Pokemon Go was bad during the pandemic? Yeah, that had nothing on Pac-Man. If you're ever wondering where today's billion-dollar gaming industry got started, then look no further than the 80s. Pac-Man taught us two things: that video games were here to stay. It was totally fine to take your allowance and get it turned into quarters. And if we couldn't agree on anything else in the world, we could agree that Pac-Man was adorable. 24. Hair metal bands ruled the rock scene. In the 80s, hair wasn't just styled, it was engineered. Enter the age of hair bands. Bon Jovi, Motley Crue, Poison, and Guns N' Roses ruled the rock scene with their guitars cranked up to 11 and hair so tall, probably interfered with radio signals. Their secret weapon wasn't the loud music and hot men. It was Aquanet. Great. Just gonna call men hot. These guys went through enough hairspray to single-handedly damage the ozone layer. Seriously, if you stood too close to them with a lighter, you're taking your own life in your own hands. It wasn't just the hair that was perfect. The heavy riffs and power ballads made teens everywhere want to fall in love under the stadium spotlights. When you add in those sexy tight pants and enough glam to outshine a Christmas tree, you've got yourself a winning recipe. And these guys weren't just a hit on the radio. Everything changed with the introduction of MTV in 1981. Music videos turned these bands into household names, and fans could not get enough. I just can't get enough. I just can't get enough. Anyway, stadiums sold out, fans screamed until they had no voices left, and Aquanet sales probably had an all-time high. During the 80s, nothing said rock and roll quite like a face full of makeup, a glittery spandex suit, and a truckload of hairspray. 23. The internet's birthday is considered to be 1983. Everyday life changed dramatically and forever on January 1st, 1983. No, this isn't because New Year's Kiss. It's because it's considered to be the birth of the internet. No, it didn't get cake, but it did get a brand new brain, so to speak. That was the day the US government research network ARPANET made the big switch to TCP/IP. That sounds complicated, right? No, it kind of was. But it was totally worth it. Before TCP/IP, different computer networks used their own private languages to talk to each other. After the swap, they could finally connect and share data around the world. This was the moment ARPANET stopped being just a nerdy project and transformed into the internet as we know it today. We could finally exchange information like old friends sharing pictures of their kids. So yes, the internet technically turned 40 in 2003 and is officially middle-aged. No wonder it still yells at us with pop-up ads and gets cranky when the Wi-Fi goes out. 22. The Breakfast Club became the ultimate teen movie of the era. If the 80s had a yearbook, The Breakfast Club would definitely be crowned most likely to become a classic. This John Hughes flick, starring Molly Ringwald, Paul Gleason, Judd Nelson, Anthony Michael Hall, Emilio Estevez, and Ali Sheedy, was released in 1985. And it wasn't just another teen movie. It was the teen movie. The setup was simple. Take 5 high school kids from completely different cliques and stick them in detention together for a Saturday. There's the brain, the athlete, the basket case, the princess, and the outcast. Basically, the Avengers, but with more eye rolls and less spandex. What truly made this special is that underneath all the snark, sass, jokes, and one-liners, the movie got real. These kids cracked through their stereotypes and revealed the messy emotional stuff nobody used to talk about. That honesty hit home, and teens saw themselves in the characters. And then there was that legendary ending with Judd Nelson pumping his fist in the air while Simple Minds belted out, "Don't you forget about me." It was one of those moments that stamped itself permanently into pop culture. The Breakfast Club redefined the teen movie scene forever. Without it, there's a chance we wouldn't have half of the teen dramas and comedies or high school misfit stories that followed. It also proved that detention could be, well, kind of iconic. 80s freeze frame. '21. Acid wash jeans were invented in 1981 in Italy, by mistake in a textile lab. While the Breakfast Club helped teens define their personal fashion, it was a mistake in the textile lab in Italy that truly changed the game. This accident is probably one of the most legendary mistakes in the history of the fashion industry. Denim makers working in the textile lab were just trying to do their job, but instead they started a global movement. They soaked pumice stones in chlorine and tossed them into the wash with the denim. What happened in that washer was magic. The denim came out faded, mottled, and wild. This hadn't happened before, and these jeans were almost thrown into the oopsie pile. Imagine being the person who did this and having to explain it to your boss. I ruined the fabric, but also I maybe just invented the coolest jeans ever. The company decided to brand them, sell them, and just see how it'd go. Talk about a happy accident. By the mid-'80s, acid wash wasn't just a trend, it was a whole lifestyle. It was literally everywhere. And I do mean everywhere. You couldn't walk through a mall or a school without seeing acid wash all over the place. Whether you were into casual streetwear or trying to channel your inner rock star, acid wash was where it was at. Accidental or not, it revolutionized denim and cemented itself as a fashion staple. Even today, if you throw on a pair, people know you're going retro. 20. CNN, the first 24-hour news network, launched in 1980. 1980 was a turning point for the news, all thanks to Ted Turner. He proposed the ridiculous-sounding idea of a channel that ran the news non-stop. Why wait for the 6 p.m. news to tell you what's going on in the world when you could flip to a 24/7 news cycle instead? He got his wish on June 1st, 1980, with the birth of CNN. At first, people weren't so keen on the idea. Around-the-clock news? Who wants, needs, or would even watch that? But to the surprise of naysayers, it didn't take long for Turner and CNN to prove their worth. The launch of CNN reshaped how people consume information. It created a non-stop news cycle that covered every major event. It was an all-you-can-eat buffet of juicy tidbits and hard-hitting coverage. This was groundbreaking. CNN had cemented itself as the place the world turned to when history was unfolding before their eyes. This is CNN. 19. The first commercially available cell phone, the Motorola DynaTAC, cost nearly $4,000. The year was 1983. Michael Jackson's Thriller was topping the charts. Everyone was wearing leg warmers, unironically, and if you wanted to look like the coolest person in the room, there was one accessory that would make you the center of everyone's attention: the Motorola DynaTAC. This cinderblock looking thing with buttons was the very first commercially available cell phone. It weighed nearly 2 pounds and was so big you practically needed a gym membership just to carry it around. The biggest catch, however, was cost. Only the rich could afford to drop $4,000 on this cool new gadget. In today's world, that would be around $15,000. Imagine how many months you can pay your rent with. Yikes. Owning one of these baddies showed everyone you had it together. And your bank account did too. So yeah, it felt like you were holding a static sounding brick to your ear, but showing it off was the ultimate power move. 18. The first 3D video game, Battlezone, was used for military training. As I mentioned earlier, the 80s were the golden age of arcade games. No one, children or adults, could resist those neon lights, quarters clinking, or chasing those bragging rights of having the highest score. Everyone wanted that high, and everyone wanted to be the first in line to play the newest game. Enter the world's first 3D video game, Battlezone. Atari's groundbreaking creation wasn't just your ordinary arcade game. It was a 3D adventure using vector graphics for a first-person shooter game that lit the market on fire. There was nothing as satisfying as dodging your enemies and taking down your foes. There's a twist, though. It wasn't just your average consumer eating this up. The US military did too. When the military took notice of what was going on in the arcades, they thought maybe, just maybe, they could use the game in training. Yes, training. They commissioned their own version of Battlezone called the Bradley Trainer. Troops across America probably had the most fun time in training. Battlezone proved video games weren't just about entertainment, they could be used for practical purposes too. This was a bright, bold move by the Army, and it paid off big time. 17. Tetris was invented. The year was 1984, and over in the Soviet Union, a computer scientist named Alexei Pajitnov was about to change the world, one falling block at a time. He was working at the Moscow Academy of Science and using a clunky Electronica 60 computer, which was basically a huge brick with a screen. Inspired by a puzzle game called Pentominoes, he got the idea of turning it into something more. He took those shapes, his coding knowledge, and made them fall from the sky. And thus, Tetris was born. A devilishly easy but endlessly addictive game is just what the world needed back then. It was all the rage, really. Who doesn't want to sit in front of a screen for 12 hours watching geometric shapes drop down and fitting them together from formed lines? Who doesn't want to get blisters and calluses on their fingers from playing this from sun up to sun down that has the graphics of MS Paint? We all did. And what made this game truly legendary wasn't that it had flashy graphics, because, yeah, it didn't. It also wasn't epic storytelling, because, well, obviously there was none. It proved that the game could conquer the world with pure gameplay. It's an icon of the Cold War era that surprisingly stacked its way into pop culture history. 16. Mullets were socially acceptable. Back in the 80s, the mullet wasn't a punchline. No, it was a statement. Business in the front and a party in the back, it went from the boardroom to the stage with ease. And everyone who was anyone had one. From David Bowie to Joan Jett to Billy Ray Cyrus, we couldn't get enough. Nothing screams party like a rock star quite like the beloved mullet. The mullet was the perfect 80s vibe. It was bold. It was chic. It sometimes came with this weird thing at the back called a rat tail. Thanks for that, Vanilla Ice. It wasn't ironic or silly. It was mainstream. And it was unstoppable. It was truly the crown for the cool and carefree. Oh, if only they knew the memes that would run wild in the decades after. While we are seeing a resurgence of the mullet now, it's considered to be more alternative, and the scissor work is definitely not as harsh. 15. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe was a cartoon created to sell toys. In the 80s, cartoons weren't just for Saturday mornings. They were crafted to be genius, sneaky marketing campaigns in disguise. For this, look no further than He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. This wasn't just some random weekend TV adventure. It was a 30-minute commercial for toys. Mattel was the mastermind behind this psychological warfare against children. They launched the show in 1983 strictly to sell action figures. He-Man, Skeletor, and soon He-Man's sister She-Ra. It was a menagerie of colorful characters that kids were begging their parents to buy. This was all thanks to the US's relaxed rules on children's programming. The show could combine epic sword fights and sci-fi gadgets while giving the occasional lesson on morals, all while getting kids to nag their parents to buy them anything and everything He-Man. The plan worked spectacularly. He-Man became an icon of the decade, and other networks and toy companies joined in and created their own shows to double up on their advertising. If you grew up in the era, you probably fell for it. We all did. 14. Black Monday saw the largest one-day stock market drop in history. October 19th, 1987 is a date that makes any Wall Street veteran shudder. This was Black Monday, the day the stock market basically threw a global tantrum. The Dow Jones Industrial Average didn't just dip, it dove. It was plunging swan dive style to a staggering 22.6% in a single day. Hundreds of billions of dollars vanished in hours, leaving investors clutching their portfolios and wondering if they'd accidentally stumbled into the Great Depression's sequel. The crash wasn't caused by a single villain or a single issue. It was a perfect storm of overvalued stocks, panicked investors, and the rise of computerized trading programs that sold everything faster than you could say, buy low, sell high. And this wasn't just a US issue. Markets around the world felt the sudden shift as shockwaves hit the global economy. The only good news is that the economy did bounce back rather quickly, faster than many feared, but that doesn't change the impact of Black Monday. It left a lasting legacy, and even birthed new safety nets for the industry. Now we have circuit breakers we can hit if the market ever tries to pull a stunt like that again. It was chaos, it was dramatic, and it was very, very 80s. 13. In 1985, the hole in the ozone layer was first discovered. Think the stock market crash sounds dramatic? Well, just wait until you hear about what went on with the ozone layer back then. In 1985, life wasn't just rad music and even radder nightlife. As it turns out, all that Aquanet really was causing a problem. One that a team of British scientists from the British Antarctic Survey discovered. Instead of spotting penguins doing the moonwalk, they noticed something extremely distressing while checking the atmosphere. The ozone layer was drastically thinning. This was the first evidence recorded of the infamous ozone layer hole. This wasn't some minor issue to brush under the rug. It was a giant gap that was a huge, patchy problem. The Earth was getting significantly less protection from dangerous UV rays. What was to blame for all this? Aerosol cans. You know, like Aquanet? Yeah, you can blame your mom for this one. Humans were way too casually tossing UV-damaging chemicals into the atmosphere while jamming out to take on me. The news truly freaked the world out, and thankfully sparked a whole lot of action. By 1987, countries signed the Montreal Protocol to phase out the dangerous chemicals. Luckily, it seems to be working, and the ozone layer is slowly healing. While the 80s are remembered for crazy hairstyles and epic music videos, it was also the decade humans realized we could accidentally poke holes in the sky, and then do something about it. 12. Halley's Comet passed Earth. 1986 was a big year for science lovers. While everyone was enjoying twirly tubular fashion and acting all cool while sporting their Walkmans, astronomers couldn't take their eyes off the skies as they prepared for the arrival of the infamous Halley's Comet. This was huge, especially considering this was the first time Halley spun past Earth in 75 years. And thanks to some truly cutting-edge 80s tech, scientists got up close and personal. Giotto, the European Space Agency, was the first to get some snapshots, and they were so clear that they showed the comet's nucleus. As you can imagine, the public went wild about the comet. There were songs, shows, and even souvenirs about the cosmic visitor. While it wasn't exactly awesome to look at with your bare eyeballs, Halley's is like the ultimate cosmic celebrity, making rare VIP appearances in our sky. And it was cool to see. In fact, it gave you serious bragging rights. 11. The first transgenic animals were cloned. In the 80s, scientists achieved something that felt straight out of science fiction: the creation of the first transgenic animals. These were animals with genes from other species inserted into their DNA, giving researchers a powerful new way to study biology and disease. Then, in 1981, scientists successfully cloned the first transgenic mice. These fellows were created by introducing new genes into embryos. The mice proved invaluable to researchers. We finally started to understand how specific genes affect health and how to treat many human diseases. These breakthroughs changed the face of medicine forever. While the rest of the world was busy with pop culture and trends, scientists were quietly changing the rules of life. It's kind of wild to think about that this all started with a tiny mouse and a big idea. 10. Pound puppies were marketed as adoptable pets for kids. When it comes to toy crazes from the 80s, you've got to ask all the kids from that time about pound puppies. These adorable stuffed animals carved out a special place in so many children's hearts, especially with those who couldn't own an actual pet. These plushies were marketed as adoptable pets for deserving pet parents. Not only did you get the toy, but it was sold with all the accessories you needed to be the best pet parent ever. You got your puppy, a cardboard kennel, and an adoption certificate. I mean, how special, right? Kids ate this up. Now everyone can own a dog, even if your dad kept telling you he was allergic, even though you know that's a lie because he loved on the neighbor's dog all the time. These guys weren't just successful toys. They were so wildly popular that they inspired a TV special, a cartoon series, and spin-off merch. By the late 80s, they were everywhere. There was nothing as fun as getting your very own puppy with a name tag and its own special story. Is this why so many millennials are all about adopt all shop? Because that would actually make sense. We were adopting these puppies left and right. 9. The Challenger's Teacher in Space program. This next not-so-fun fact traumatized any child who was sitting in an American classroom on January 28, 1986. That was the day they watched the Challenger fail to launch into space, which caused one of the most horrific public disasters of the decade. NASA cooked up what should have been the rad idea of the Teacher in Space program, and it was an immediate hit. Their goal was to send a civilian into orbit to teach and inspire students nationwide. The unlucky winner was Krista McCullough, a New Hampshire high school social studies teacher, and she was stoked. She couldn't wait to get to zero gravity and do the coolest lessons in the universe. Space was going to be her classroom, and she was slated to become a hero to children everywhere. Tragically, this dream ended abruptly. A mere 73 seconds after liftoff, the Space Shuttle Challenger broke apart. All crew members, including McCullough, were killed instantly. As if that wasn't bad enough, this was streamed into classrooms everywhere. Every single person watching was traumatized. If you want to know what's wrong with Gen X, look no further than this. Imagine sitting in the classroom all excited to see a spaceship hit orbit so you could see the most whimsical lesson of all time, only to watch it all explode and end in a ball of fire. Today, McCullough's legacy still inspires teachers and students everywhere. A reminder that even ordinary people can aim for the extraordinary. 8. Yuppie culture took hold. The 80s were a time when ambition had shoulder pads, ambition had slick back hair, and apparently ambition came with the side of Ferrari. Enter the world of yuppies, or young urban professionals. These were the ultimate career climbers. These were folks who chased corner offices, cocktail parties, and more money than you can count without a calculator the size of a small car. Nothing summed up that attitude quite like the phrase that practically became the decade's unofficial slogan: greed is good. Yep, straight from the 1987 blockbuster Wall Street. Michael Douglas starred in Wall Street as Gordon Gekko. His character delivered a line during a speech that kicked yuppie culture into high gear. While his speech was supposed to be a critique of unchecked greed, when people heard that man say greed is good, they took it and ran with it. It became a mantra for a generation. Today, when we think of the 80s economic boom and its darker, ruthless side, Gekko and his greed is good mantra are pretty much the first things that pop into many people's heads. The yuppie craze wasn't just about money, though. It was about style, ambition, and the idea that if you wanted it, you could have it all. It was the decade of big deals, bigger egos, and the biggest neon-colored spreadsheets you've ever seen. Whether you love it or hate it, or just find it hilarious in retrospect, that era of Wall Street swagger still defines the 80s in the most glamorous and slightly terrifying way possible. 7. Chia pets hit their high. If you ever turned on TV in the 80s, you probably heard it. Chia! That catchy little jingle belonged to none other than the Chia pet, the quirky clay figure that became a full-blown novelty gift sensation. Everyone wanted to get their hands on one. You could get them in nearly every shape. Love cats? Yeah, you can get a Chia kitty. Dogs? Yeah, they had that too. Perhaps you wanted to turn Bob Ross into Bob Moss. Yep, that was also totally possible. You take your clay plot, slather in chia seeds, and wait a few days for the magic to happen. Chia pets became a symbol of 80s pop culture consumerism. This was a moment when people were willing to embrace the silly, the fun, and the slightly absurd. And thanks to their quirky appeal, Chia pets stuck around, evolving into a nostalgic classic that still sprouts smiles decades later. 6. McDonald's introduced Chicken Nuggets. 1983 was a great year for the fast food scene. That's when McDonald's changed the lives of every child on the planet and introduced the almighty Chicken McNugget. These golden nuggets hit the scene, and life truly has not been the same since. They were perfect, bite-sized, came with a dipping sauce, and toddler-friendly. So toddler-friendly, chicken nuggets are now a staple for nearly every single little human on the planet. The launch was so explosive that by the end of that year, some restaurants ran into supply shortages. It didn't last long though. McDonald's stepped up, pumped out more and more delicious nuggets, and cemented itself as the giant of fast food. Just imagine a life without chicken nuggets. How boring. This may very well be the single most important invention of all time. I'm kidding. But not really, I mean, they are so good. 5. Chickenpox Parties. This next fun fact truly lends itself to the saying, when we know better, we do better. Because, oh boy, this one's messy. And it's another time that 80s kids were traumatized. This time, at the hands of their own parents. I'm not talking about discipline. I'm talking about parents throwing parties to intentionally make their kids sick. Welcome to the Chickenpox Party. Oh yes, our parents loved this one. It only took one kid in the neighborhood to get those dreaded itchy spots popping off, and everyone was planning a shindig in the streets with the sick kid at the center of everyone's attention. Yeah, parents wanted their kids to get the pox. They encouraged the little ones to share toys and sometimes even share drinks with the infected child in the hopes their darling son or daughter would get those dreaded spots too. The idea behind it was that you only need to get chickenpox once to get lifelong immunity, so why not just get it out of the way? Unfortunately, that kind of backfired when some kids found themselves sick more than once. Thankfully, by the mid-90s, this strange trend came to an end with the introduction of the vaccine. 4. 1-cent cassettes from Columbia House. Back in the 80s, if you wanted to build the ultimate music collection, you didn't need to look any further than Columbia House. No more breaking the bank for the latest Toni Braxton album. You could very literally order 12 cassettes for a penny. That was the deal Columbia House dangled in front of music fans, and how nearly an entire generation ended up in debt to the same company. All you had to do was be part of their mail order club and promise to buy a bunch of cassettes after your first delivery. Sweet deal, right? Of course, who wouldn't want to get in on this? How Columbia House stayed afloat is beyond me. Not only did everyone get 12 cassettes for a penny, but there were way too many people gaming the system, using fake names to order more and more and more. But the company prevailed. They had their ads up everywhere. From TV to magazines to flyers and newspapers, you couldn't escape them. It was too good to pass up, especially for teens and broke young adults. It was a rite of passage to get your first order and ignore buying more. Did it also throw a whole lot of people into debt? Sure. Can you imagine what would happen if Columbia House went after everyone who still owes them money over 20 years later? 3. DC Comics versus The Karate Kid. The Karate Kid hit theaters in 1984 and became an instant classic. Everyone wanted to be Ralph Macchio. Millions of kids around the world walked around reciting wax on, wax off, and practiced their moves. It was a good time. It was a fun time. Well, unless you were DC Comics. As it turned out, DC Comics had already had an established character called the Karate Kid from way back in the 60s. Were they mad? Maybe. But did they show it by taking the movie to court and duking it out over the trademark? Surprisingly, no. DC Comics gave the producers the green light to use the name. This led to a collaboration so smooth that the comic book Karate Kid pretty much vanished, and the movie Karate Kid became a cultural sensation. All because DC Comics decided not to fight over a name and just step aside and let Hollywood take the reins. 2. Those without cable TV only got 3 channels. You didn't need cable in the 80s to be entertained. Now, well, maybe. If you were a TV lover, you'd totally want to call up the cable company and sign up for a package because bunny ears didn't get you very far. Without it, you'd only get 3 major channels: ABC, CBS, and NBC. While this was plenty for some, especially for those stay-at-home moms and grandmas who watched their stories in the afternoon, you weren't getting sports networks, MTV, or stations like Nickelodeon. Sure, you got plenty of Luke and Laura and your daily dose of Victor Newman, and even some of the best sitcoms at night. But you didn't have a whole lot of options. For families without cable, the big three networks basically decided what you were watching, when you were watching it, and probably what everyone was talking about the next day at school or work. 1. Super Bowl Shuffle hit the Billboard Hot 100. For our final fun fact of the day, we're mixing music, sports, and pop culture and rolling it all into one. I'm talking about when the Chicago Bears made history off the field in 1984. The players took the music world by storm when they brought out their hit rap single, Super Bowl Shuffle. Oh, you haven't heard it? Then you need to go look it up right now. They featured big-name players like Walter Payton, Jim McMahon, and William the Refrigerator Perry brag about their moves on the field and their personalities off of it. The track was released as a charity project, but it quickly snowballed into something much bigger. The song climbed all the way to number 41 on the charts, and fans couldn't get enough. It was quite the twist to see an NFL team manage to chart higher than some of the actual musicians out there. Imagine being some garage band waiting for your big break and a group of NFLers took you out. I'd be mad. And also impressed. The Bears didn't stop winning with music. They ended their season by winning Super Bowl 20 and sealing the Super Bowl Shuffle as a phenomenon. It became an anthem for the legendary team. Looking back, it's one of the quirkiest crossovers of the decade. What a time to be alive. Although as a Bucks fan, I am very impartial to Buccaneers, Go Bucks! Hey, Tampa Bay, the Bucks. Sorry. Anyway, did you know all that about the 80s? Which fun fact surprised you the most? And if you were lucky enough to be a kid growing up back then, is there a fun fact I missed? Want to learn more about why kids from the 80s are kind of a bit of a mess? Check out our video 25 facts showing why 80s kids are so tough. For those of you who think you know everything about the 80s without looking it up, let's see if you can answer this question. What year did My Little Pony launch? A, 1980, B, 1982, C, 1983, or D, 1985? And that's it for now. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, like, share, comment, subscribe, notification bell, bonus trivia, what year in the 80s was I born? I'll catch you guys later. Bye.